You're watching the ANEC Sports Podcast on YouTube. The show starts right now. Welcome to episode 30 of the ANEC Sports Podcast. My name is Sam Fritch. I'm the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, covering schools across Northeast Indiana and Elkhart County. That includes the ACAC, the NECC, and the Northeast State. So we are heading into a new week as Palm Sunday concludes at the time of this recording, and just want to give a heads up right away. There will not be an episode of the NEC Sports Podcast next week due to scheduling conflicts regarding to Easter weekend. But we will be back with another episode of the NEC Sports Podcast in 2 weeks, and we will recap what took place between now and that weekend. But for now, let's go ahead and just, for the talk around the corner, just do a brief recap of what we've seen so far on the season. And I think we want to start off with take a look at baseball and softball. And beginning with the ACAC, let's go ahead and kick things off with softball. And so far, the ACAC softball conference looks to be building a very interesting storyline as we head into conference action, where we have 4 teams on paper, probably in the thick of things for the conference race once again this season. Heritage 6-0 in the season so far, including an impressive 2-0 win over Northrop. I believe that was just over the weekend that they played the Northrop Bruins. And so far, Heritage has been dominant so far this season, winning in blowout fashion against most competition. A couple close wins along the way against Columbia City, but did take care of business on Friday against Northrop 2-0, and then absolutely annihilated Bishop Lewis 21-2 on Saturday. And that's a much improved Bishop Lewis team than what we have seen in the past. So Heritage has looked quite good so far this season. You look at Jay County at 4-0 in the season. They haven't played anybody that's like particularly amazing so far. They were supposed to play Belmont this past week, but because of Mother Nature, that has been rescheduled to a new date. Hopefully these two are able to meet at some point this season, because I think that would be an intriguing matchup for these two teams as they enter the sectional tournament. Jay County comes in at 4-0 in the season, just like Heritage. They have looked quite good with their offense. Their pitching has been quite good as well. So Jay County, the Patriots of Heritage and Jay County looking strong so far. South Adams 3-0 in the season and just absolutely tearing it up so far, outscoring their opponents 33-2 so far this season. I believe that also came in a sweep of Westdale, where they outscored the Warriors 22-1 over the weekend, and then defeating Winchester 11-1. And then Woodland, don't rule out the Woodland Warriors. They're 3-1 so far this season. Aside from the defeat to the Leo Lions a couple weeks ago, 4-1, Woodland has, at least their pitching and some of their timely hits, they've looked quite good for the Woodland Warriors. So we should expect another exciting year for the ACAC. And even in the bottom half of the conference with Bluffton, Adams Central, and Southern Wells, I don't think either of those 3 teams are particularly bad teams either. Like, I don't think Bluffton has shown their full potential yet. They've played some tough competition so far, but I don't think Bluffton has quite played to its fullest potential. Adams Central has only played just that one game, and that was a tough first game against Eastside where they fell 22-6. But you could take some good out of that game if you're Adams Central there in that contest. And then Southern Wells 0-4 to start the season. They have played some difficult competition as well, playing Central Noble, Union City. And then Winchester is a solid team. I know they got beat badly by South Adams, but Winchester's a pretty solid softball team. So Southern Wells, I think, is a better team than what we've seen so far from them as well. When you look at the ACAC, some key games coming up on Monday. Belmont and Adams Central will square off in Monroe, and Adams County rivalry between the Braves and the Jets. We'll get to see a little bit more of what the Jets can bring to their game. I think their pitching is going to be a little bit inexperienced this year, and I think we've seen that so far. But they do have a couple kids at Adams Central that are pretty good and very talented players on that team with Melina Perales and Izzy Ish. So I think Adams Central has more to show so far this season. South Adams, undefeated on the season. They'll travel out of state to Parkway, take on a 6-0 Parkway Panthers team. That's a nice matchup for South Adams to get them prepared for the rest of the season. Tuesday, Jay County looking to stay undefeated, when they host the Eastbrook Panthers. Eastbrook coming in at 3-2 in the season. Nice start for Eastbrook, a team that traditionally doesn't always have great teams in softball, but so far looking pretty good. And then on Wednesday, Woodland will continue their tough non-conference schedule by traveling to Northup to take on the Northup Bruins, who've only played one game so far, and that was a 2-0 loss to the Heritage Patriots. It's a very difficult matchup for Woodland, and it's a good test to see where Woodland is at against quality teams with excellent pitching. And I think this is going to be a good test for a talented Woodland team that expects to compete this year. Friday, we will have Jay County hosting Norwell, and Norwell looking quite good so far. They're undefeated on the season. We'll talk about Norwell in a matter of moments. That should be a nice matchup between the Knights and the Jay County Patriots on Friday. And then Saturday, South Adams will travel to Norwell for a doubleheader against the Knights. And then Southern Wells, looking for their first win of the season, they got a doubleheader going to Wabash. These are just some of the notable matchups coming up this week for the ACAC for softball. When you take a look at the ACAC for baseball, the conference over the past several years, it has gone through the Heritage Patriots. And while Heritage is a different team this year compared to what we have seen in the past, Heritage is still Heritage, right? I mean, you look at what they've done so far this season. You have Lucas Taylor playing quite well for Heritage at the start of the season. The Ronner kids have done quite well, leading the way on the mound for the Heritage Patriots. They got a pretty experienced team overall. I know they lost a bit, but they still have a pretty experienced team with balls. Stoppenhagen. Again, we talked about the Ronner kids, Cameron and Elijah Ronner. Cameron's a senior, Elijah is a sophomore. You got Max Morales is just a junior. You got Lucas Taylor as a sophomore. Landon Liebarter is a senior. We know about him from his basketball days. Corbin Solfrank's a sophomore. Mason Abbott, a senior catcher. Still a pretty good baseball team at Heritage. I know they graduated and I believe this is their biggest class they ever had last year at Heritage, where they had 3 or 4 collegiate recruits on that senior class. But Heritage 2-1 the season so far. Expected to compete in the ACAC this season. And we're looking forward to see what happens here. Southern Wells 4-1 at the start of the season. I know their schedule isn't like particularly incredible, but I would say all things considered, Southern Wells has dominated the 1A competition so far. And I think Southern Wells is going to be an intriguing team to watch in the ACAC this season for baseball as they take on Mississauga on Monday. That's a nice matchup for the Southern Wells Raiders to see where they stand with against bigger schools as they prepare for the ACAC. Jay County 1-3 on the season. They'll take on the Coldwater Cavaliers, Coldwater out of Ohio, and they are 5-1 this season. So this is a good test for the Jay County Patriots. Woodland 2-2 on the season. A couple decent games so far. They'll be taking on the Garrett Railroaders on Monday. Garrett just has only played the one game so far. 0-1 to begin the season for the Garrett Railroaders. Tuesday, the Bluffton Tigers. They'll host the Manchester Squires. Manchester undefeated on the season so far. I believe Manchester is the defending TRC champions. So they come in with high expectations once again this season. Bluffton coming off a 7-1 defeat at the hands of Northwestern, but did blow out Taylor 17-0. And they also opened the season with 11-10 win over a much improved New Haven Bulldog squad. So Bluffton's going to be another intriguing team. I know they graduated a big class last year, but Bluffton should be a pretty competitive team in the ACAC once again. And they got, once again, just like with the softball team, Adams Central is also playing Belmont. This time at Belmont on Tuesday. The Jets are 1-3 to begin this season. Their only win coming against Taylor, 15-2. They had a 10-7 loss to Northwestern on Saturday, but also had, again, the win against Taylor, but then lost to Peru 9-0. It's a solid Peru program there. And then losing to Fort Recovery, Ohio on the road, 5-1. Fort Recovery is a nice program in the state of Ohio. South Adams looking for their first win of the season when they take on the Canterbury Cavaliers, who are playing their first game of the season. Jay County hosting Newcastle as well. Southern Wells will be traveling to Eastbrook to take on the Panthers. That should be another intriguing matchup for the Southern Wells Raiders against a pretty decent rival of their own in the Eastbrook Panthers. And then you got, let's see here, Woodlands hosting Southside on Wednesday. I think that's an intriguing matchup there. New Haven is at South Adams. I think that will be an enticing matchup for the Starfires to see how they can, if they can get any type of offense against New Haven's pitching, which has been New Haven's strength so far. Problem for New Haven is they need to actually defend. That's kind of been their problem so far this year. And then for the ANEC game of the week, the Heritage Patriots will be traveling to Norwell, take on the Norwell Knights. That should be a nice matchup down in Ossian between two perennial baseball powers. In Ossian, Low is at Bluffton. That's an intriguing matchup right there. And then Jade County is also hosting Yorktown that day. And then Saturday, Heritage is at Whitco for a doubleheader. Woodland at Prairie Heights for a doubleheader. Bluffton at Oak Hill also for a doubleheader. And then South Adams is going to be traveling to Fort Recovery and in Ohio, take on the Fort Recovery Indians. So that does it for the ACAC for baseball and softball. And then we take a look at the Northeast Corner Conference. We begin with softball, and a developing story in the NECC for softball. Busco off to one of the best starts in the history of the program. They're 5-0 on the season, which includes sweeping the Busco tournament by defeating the Bremen Lions 5-2, and then defeating Lakeland in the championship game 13-3 to take home this tournament championship. This is one of the rare starts for Busco. They don't usually start off this strong, and they normally don't have this many games this early in the season. So it is a good confidence booster for the Busco Eagles, a talented Busco team that has spent many years developing their feeder system, developing some young talent at Busco. They finally have some talent in the travel ball level, and now Busco has some confidence, some pitching depth to complement some pretty good bats on this Busco team that will make the Busco Eagles an intriguing matchup for most teams throughout the course of the season. Obviously, we talked about the NECC East Side, the defending conference champions are going to be in the midst once again. I know this may not quite be the same East Side team that we might have seen a couple years ago, especially when they won a state championship in 2022, but this is still a really, really, really good East Side team. Yeah, the pitching hasn't been perfect. It's still good. They're still scoring at a pretty decent rate. The defense has been a little susceptible so far, but again, when it comes to the NECC, Eastside is still on paper the favorites to win the conference again. And until somebody can knock them off in the regular season, that remains to be the case. Westview off to a 1-0 start, but they have not played a couple weeks. Curious to see what Westview does as we get into more of a routine schedule for teams as the weather starts to warm up and we get better conditions for teams to play softball and baseball and whatnot. Central Noble, 2-1 on the season, but I think the bigger storyline for Central Noble is what's been going on with the program off the field because of Coach David Pearson having to step away because for health reasons due to a situation a couple weeks ago where he suffered a stroke on a Saturday night. Thankfully, the medical team was able to take care of the situation in a timely manner, and it does sound like, from what I have been hearing, it does appear like he's in good spirits and doing well, but it's a recovery. It's a long road ahead for him as he looks to rehab from the stroke that he suffered a couple weeks ago. And obviously, we wish him the best there. For him, as he intends to come back later this season, but again, I'm sure he will be missed. But for the time being, for the folks not only in Central Noble but across the entire softball community as a whole. Fremont 2-1 in the season as well. Finally starting to get some softball and baseball for that matter. Fremont kind of an intriguing team in the NECC, although not having Addie Parr kind of hurts Fremont in that aspect for softball. For those who don't know, Addie Parr is basically just playing track, just running track and field. She can only play one sport in the spring, so she is in track and field for this season. So, but still, Fremont still has a good team. We expect Fremont to still be in the midst with Sammy Myers still there for her senior year, one of the top shortstops in the area. Still a pretty nice team. Fairfield 2-2 in the season. I don't think we have seen the full potential for the Fairfield Falcons, and also they've only played 4 games, so there's a lot we still need to know about the Fairfield Falcons, but they're still very much in the thick of things in the NECC. Although prayers do go out to Alan Hosoppel, who did suffer a season-ending knee injury against Northwood. But this Fairfield team is a pretty deep team. They will be able to overcome this hurdle with the injury, and Fairfield will be just fine. West Noble, they're 2-2. Not a bad start for the Chargers in their first year under Matty Bremer. And West Noble looking to weather through this rebuild, kind of like with basketball and soccer, trying to weather through this rebuild for the West Noble Chargers. And they're going to be a scrappy team this year for sure. They're not going to be an easy out for anybody. Garrett, 1-1 in the season. Nice win against East Noble on Saturday, winning 6-5. And you're finally starting to see the seeds being planted for the Garrett Railroaders. It's not too long ago that when Scott Bishop was the longtime head coach of the Garrett Railroaders, they were a contender in Northeast Indiana for many, many, many years. And now we're seeing Garrett starting to slowly move their way up as a contender in the Northeast Corner Conference. And they're going to be another team to watch as we get to May. They're not going to be an easy team whatsoever for local teams. That the days of Garrett being pushed around are probably coming to an end this season. This is not going to be an easy opponent this year. Prairie Heights 1-2. It's hard to tell with Prairie Heights so far. They've only played 3 games. It hasn't been an easy schedule either for Prairie Heights, playing East Noble, having to play DeKalb, a much improved DeKalb team. Their win came against New Haven, kind of an expected win for Prairie Heights, but the other 2 games were more difficult opponents, and it's not going to get much easier in a couple days when they take on the Lakeland Lakers on Tuesday. And then Angola has only played just the one or 2 games. Let me make sure I check that real quick. I believe they're 0-1. I believe they're 0-1 to begin the season. They were supposed to play Huntington North. I don't think that game was played on as originally scheduled because of the weather. So they only played just the Norwell game last week, and I know they lost that game for the Angola Hornets. They lost to Norwell's a really good team. So, that's not a loss I look at and say, well, that's a bad loss for Angola because they played Norwell. Norwell's one of the top teams in the Northeast states. If 12-4 Norwell win, that's a really good Norwell team. So, again, we don't know much about Angola right now in terms of this season. But in terms of the NECC, looking at what's ahead for the Northeast Corner Conference, on Monday for the ANEC, one of the ANEC softball games of the week. On Monday, East Noble is at Central Noble. You will hear my interview with East Noble head coach Jessica Hull as she talks about the start to the season for the East Noble Knights. A late start for East Noble because the way they scheduled their softball season, they scheduled the start of their season right after spring break, which East Noble has a 2-week spring break. So, ironically, East Noble will usually be behind everybody else in the area, but because we've had so many postponements and cancellations already, softball, East Noble has kind of been right on schedule with everybody else so far, and East Noble has looked quite good in various portions, especially against Prairie Heights in a 13-1 win against the Panthers. And then even in moments against Garrett and a loss to the Railroaders, still showed some good moments there. They still got 10 hits against Ashley Vanderbosch of Garrett's. And East Noble does have a talented team that expects to improve in the Northeast state as a team that coming off of 2 straight sectional titles, looking to improve and build off of that this season. A nice matchup in Albion against Central Noble, county rivals between these 2 schools, and Central Noble should be an intriguing matchup there. 2 teams, 2 very talented teams, 2 teams that can make plays, 2 teams that can put the ball in play, hit it all across the field, run the base pads. They can also pitch, play defense, you name it. I think this should be a very good matchup in Albion, Indiana between these 2 schools. Tuesday, Central Noble goes to Fremont. That has been an intriguing matchup in recent memory as they go up to Fremont, take on the Eagles, another team with some talent of their own, and a team that made it to semi-state last year. Eastside is at Angola. Eastside starts their conference defense officially on Tuesday. They'll go up to Angola, take on the Hornets. And this Eastside team, and while they have had their early hiccups against Woodland and Homestead, and while they lost those 2 games, and those are 2 really good opponents for Eastside, they have looked good in various portions, defeating Concordia by 10, beating Eden. They annihilated Adams Central. I know Adams Central is not as good as they were last year, but still, Adams Central is a decent opponent. Beating DeKalb, beating Hitsville in a doubleheader, the Blazers do have an intimidating offense, and that's going to make opposing teams really, really nervous about playing and preparing the East Side Blazers. Daniel Guerrero has hit the ball extremely well so far. LD Bishop's is an intriguing player for East Side. Emily McLean, just like all the other McLeans have come through East Side, another talented young lady for the Blazers. Lily Klein, a player that won a state championship in her freshman year. Lucy Kitchen, just fulfilling the Kitchen family legacy at East Side. Reese Shaw, another nice player for the East Side Blazers. So they're still a very talented team, no less for East Side. Angola, we don't know much about Angola this season yet. Just played the one game against Norwell. Doesn't really tell you a whole lot about what this team could look like this season. But I think when you look at the Angola Hornets, they do have a couple intriguing players with Harley Henning, who's one of the top base stealers in the area. And then you also have Kinsey Grubb, solid player for Angola there. And then Savannah Bitzler is intriguing for the Angola Hornets as well. So this is an intriguing team. It may not be the most talented team in the NECC, but they're definitely not short of athleticism. That is for sure. And I think that will be an intriguing first conference game for these two teams. Lakeland at Prairie Heights. Historically, these have been competitive matches between these two teams. And while Lakeland is off to a 1-4 start, I don't think that tells you a whole lot about Lakeland in terms of what they can bring to this season. Again, they've played some tough competition so far, playing Northridge and Whitco and Northwood and Churubusco. The only win coming against Eastbrook, it's a pretty decent Eastbrook team. So I think Lakeland is a much more difficult team than that record tells you. And I think for Prairie Heights fans, they should come in expecting a ball game on Tuesday. And I think Lakeland fans would expect the same, as these two teams have played pretty tough schedules at the beginning of the season. Garrett is at Westview. And I think this is going to be a tough matchup for Westview, coming off a long layoff because of the cancellations and then spring break. On top of that, you got this Garrett team that's got a couple games under their belts recently, and Garrett's got some confidence right now. For Westview, can they get the ball? Can they hit the ball off of Vanderbosch and get on base here? I think that's the big thing for Westview right now, as this Garrett team is on a roll right now. And I know it's early in the season, but I think this is definitely a sense of confidence that we have not seen in recent memory with the Garrett Railroaders, and Westview's got a tall task ahead of them on Tuesday. Wednesday, the other ANEC softball game of the week will feature the Manchester Squires and the Churubusco Eagles. Manchester coming in 2-2 on the season. They've showed some good moments in their start so far. Although with Manchester, they've also been playing some tough competition of their own. I believe one of their games came against Bremen, to which Bremen defeated Manchester 8-2. They have wins against New Haven and Wayne. They did lose to Bishop Dwayner, so there's still a lot we don't know about the Squires yet. But I think when you're looking at a team like Manchester, I think that's a good opponent for Churubusco, looking to be tested here and continue to build off of their start here as Busco starts their conference run this week, playing some really good competition. This is going to be a busy week for the Churubusco Eagles, as you got plenty of conference competition coming up with Fairfield coming up on Tuesday. I believe they host the Fairfield Falcons, and then they host the Garrett Railroaders on Thursday. And then you got the matchup against East Side on Saturday. And so this is not going to be an easy week for Busco whatsoever. And also you got Snyder coming up on Monday. So if you're looking for a week of home cooking for the Churubusco Eagles, I mean, there's an opportunity right there to see this red hot Busco team try to pick up some big wins here and try to stay afloat in the conference race. So this week's going to tell you a lot about where Churubusco stands in the conference, and we're only about 3 weeks in the season. So this week is very, very crucial for Churubusco in terms of conference competition if they want to keep themselves in that hunt for the conference race. On Thursday, Fairfield hosts Angola, East Side at Fremont. You got Garrett at Busco. I mentioned that just moments ago. And you got the LaGrange County Civil War. Lakeland and Westview, and then Prairie Heights hosts West Noble. And then Friday, Central Noble will take on DeKalb. That's an intriguing non-conference matchup there. And then Eastside will be traveling to Huntertown to take on the Carroll Chargers. That's another really nice opponent for the Eastside Blazers. They look to continue to be tested for what's going to be a difficult 2A state tournament coming up for the Eastside Blazers this season. And then Saturday, on top of Eastside playing Busco, you got Garrett at West Noble, Lakeland at Angola in a doubleheader. Keep in mind the first game is usually the conference game, followed by a second game is usually just an additional game. Manchester Fremont is also a doubleheader as well. We take a look at the NECC side in terms of baseball. There are expectations for the Westview Warriors. Having gone to semi-state the past 2 years, they still return their number one pitcher in Matt Engel. Most of their team is back for this season. So Westview is primed for another big season of competing not only for the NECC, but looking at potentially trying to make their way to Victory Field in Indianapolis this year. And that's going to be a team to really keep an eye on in terms of 2A state title aspirations there. Another team to keep an eye on is Fremont. They made it to semi-state for the first time in about 20 years last year. They got a new head coach for the Fremont Eagles, but off to a 3-0 start to the season for the Fremont Eagles. They'll be taking on the Cal Barons on Monday. The Cal 2-0 to begin the season for the Barons as they defeated the Garrett Railroaders and the Northrop Bruins by a combined score of 25-0. Meanwhile, the Fremont Eagles, 3-0 in the season, they've had to battle a little bit more in their games, but nonetheless, they are undefeated as well. They have an 11-9 win at Hitsville on Friday and then swept Prairie Heights in a doubleheader by a combined score of 22-6 in that doubleheader. This is a good measuring stick game for Fremont as they prepare for the conference slate of games. And the NECC is definitely not an easy conference when it comes to baseball there. West Noble, 1-0 this season. They are going to be traveling to Northwood, another powerhouse in baseball, take on the Northwood Panthers. And then Garrett, 0-1 on the season. They'll be hosting the Woodland Warriors I mentioned earlier. Garrett's lone game came against the Calb in an 8-0 loss to their rivals, the Barons. Some other matchups here. Eastside at Angola. Eastside in a little bit of a retool in some ways. I mean, I would say it's still Eastside baseball. Like, I think they're still in the midst in the Northeast Corner Conference, but I do think they do have some room to grow for the Eastside Blazers. An intriguing first conference match at Angola is going to certainly be an indicator of what are things to come for the Blazers. Angola is not a bad team either. They've had some close losses along the way. So this is a tough first game for the Eastside Blazers. Lakeland at Prairie Heights. Lakeland is 3-0 this season. They are one of the teams that are pursuing a conference championship this season, and now they are in Class 2A. So you know they're going to be very much in the thick of things in the 2A state tournament, especially when you're in the same sectional as your good old rivals, the Westview Warriors. A win over Lakewood Park on Friday, 20-0 win against Lakewood Park, gave Michael Isaacs his 100th career win as a Lakeland head baseball coach. So congratulations to Coach Isaacs on that victory against Lakewood Park. They'll be taking on the winless Prairie Heights Panthers, a scrappy Prairie Heights team no less. Garrett at Westview, that's been a competitive game in recent years. What does Garrett bring on the table to challenge the Westview Warriors? That is going to be interesting in that regard. They do have a couple of intriguing players at Garrett, particularly with Grant Byers for the Garrett Railroaders is another intriguing player in the NECC. I think you also look at Lucas Collins, Parker Skelly, and Jacob Gagne, Easton Ratcliffe. Like, there's some intriguing players. They are a younger team this year, but Garrett is definitely not a team short of talents, and certainly they're going to be a tough team each game, no matter what the score tells you. Central Noble, they've only played the one game so far this season. It was a game against Columbia City a couple weeks ago. It was a competitive game, but Central Noble just couldn't score anything against Columbia City a few weeks ago in a 5-0 Columbia City win. Can they get on the board on Tuesday at Fremont? That is going to be an interesting game to see how that pans out for the Cougars offense against a tough Fremont team that's pitching the ball well. Fairfield at Carroll. Busco. Fairfield comes in at 3-1. Busco is 2-2. After a slow start for Busco, they're finally starting to pick up some confidence along the way. Fairfield's lone loss coming against Plymouth on Friday, a 6-5 defeat at the hands of the Plymouth Pilgrims. But they also have some quality wins against Wawa C, South Bend Adams, and South Central Union Mills. So this Fairfield team is another team to keep an eye on in terms of a team that can maybe win a sectional championship this season. Maybe. I do want to make sure I note this too, that Columbia City is now in that same sectional. That could be a problem for Fairfield. So something to keep an eye on there. Wednesday, Lakeland is hosting Northridge. That's an intriguing matchup for the Lakers. Central Noble at Goshen. Busco, a tough matchup against county rival Columbia City on the road. Thursday, Angola is at Fairfield. Again, Angola is a sneaky team. Fairfield cannot overlook the Angola Hornets. They have some arms at Angola, but Angola hasn't shown that they can play a clean 7 innings so far. The Hornets are an intriguing team. They have the athletes. I think it's all a matter of execution. Lakeland at Westview in the LaGrange County Civil War, and this is going to be an anticipated matchup between the Lakers and the Warriors. What does this game bring? This is an intriguing matchup between two long-time rivals in LaGrange County. West Noble at Prairie Heights, Garrett at Busco, and then east side of Fremont, another intriguing rivalry in the NECC. And then Friday, Fairfield at Northwood, longtime county rivals there. Westview at Northridge, and then Manchester at Busco in baseball. Saturday, you have Central Noble at Fairfield. You got Lakeland at Angola, once again, a doubleheader there. Garrett at West Noble in a doubleheader. East side at Busco, Woodland Prairie Heights. So a lot of big games coming up in the Northeast Corner Conference. And then lastly, let's go ahead and take a look at the Northeast States. And with the NE8, right now, when it comes to Northeast State softball, Leo stands atop in the Northeast State at 4-0. Leah Chappelle has looked sensational so far for the Leo Lions on the mound. But Leo, again, just like your typical Leo teams, they usually have multiple girls on this team that they flat out play. They got girls that can make plays. They got girls that can hit. They got girls that play good defense, and they can put the ball in play, whether it's through their power, whether it's through contact, whatever it may be. They have plenty of players that can do that. Carly Funk is certainly one of those players. Courtney Dowdy showing some good things there so far. Emily Connolly having a nice start to the season as well. So this Leo team, once again, will be right there in the thick of things in the Northeast States. You got Belmont at 2-0, and they're hitting the ball exceptionally well so far, led by Emily Blakey, the senior of the Belmont Braves, with 2 home runs on the season, as well as another senior at Belmont as well as another senior in Taylor Bauer. So these two have had a great start hitting the ball. You got Annalie Krukeberg, a freshman, an intriguing freshman on this team. You got Liz Bobet at junior, intriguing player there. Ella Franz. Bella Ashley's a solid pitcher for the Belmont Braves. Her numbers aren't like extremely fancy by any means. I mean, Bella Ashley's not gonna strike out a lot of batters most of the time, but she is going to get out. So that's one of the things that makes Bella Ashley a great pitcher for the Belmont Braves. And they got Aaliyah Farrote, Finney Gotzi, Taylor Sutter. It's a very intriguing softball to keep an eye on in the Northeast State. Norwell coming off a trip to semi-state last year. They're 2-0 the season. This is a deep Norwell team. And it does appear like Norwell just got even deeper this year. So they are going to be a threat in this Northeast State this year. At least from the offensive side, they're going to be able to score some runs because they got a lot of kids that can put the ball in play. Whether if it's Abby Wagner or Kara Brown, or even if you go down the list with Reese Frauheiger and Mia Kurtz, just a freshman, already picked up a home run there. And on the mound, you got two solid pitchers in Kara Brown and, of course, Kayla Watkins with their 1.75 ERA. You got a decent team. Now, can they do it against the likes of Leo? That's going to be an intriguing question that they'll have to answer. Columbia City, 1-1 this season. They are coming off of spring break, so they have not played in a couple of weeks. But the Eagles definitely have the talent to compete in the Northeast states and certainly will be a team to watch in the 3A state tournaments. Madeline Brady is having a great start to the season, batting .625 so far this season for the Eagles. Hannah Mattard had a clutch home run in a win against Bishop Dwayner earlier this season, which they won 4-3, and then they had the 7-5 loss to Heritage just one day later, I should say. You got Jalen Shaper with 2 stolen bases. Emma Hiss sporting an incredible 1.08 ERA. Kendall Sadison is another one. Like, they got a nice group of kids at Columbia City. And again, just like we've seen in other sports, the Eagles continue to be one of the top teams to watch in Northeast State. And they'll have some tough games coming up starting this week. East Noble, 1-1. They started their season on Friday with a nice win against Prairie Heights before losing to Garrett the next day, 6-5. DeKalb is 1-1 on the season as well. They had a brutal start to the season, losing to Eastside, but did bounce back with a 5-3 win against Prairie Heights. DeKalb returns a lot as well. Is it enough for the Barons to compete in the Northeast State, though? That remains to be seen. Huntington North off to an 0-3 start. They are kind of in a rebuild this year. They definitely lost a bit from last season, and their schedule does not give them any favors. So that was to be expected on some level. It's kind of a trial by fire for Huntington North for this season. We'll see if they can improve over the course of the season and see if they are able to compete against the lights of the Northeast State. But it certainly looks like it's going to be a long learning season for the Huntington North, at least overall. And then New Haven 0-4, although New Haven has looked better this season than what we've seen in the past. Normally with New Haven, they would be struggling like really, really bad. And so far, they've been pretty competitive. And despite the losses, they've been pretty competitive for New Haven standards. So they're right in the midst of some games. And they'll have an opportunity to win some games throughout the course of the season. You look at the games coming up, notably on Monday, Angola at DeKalb. That is going to be a tough matchup for the DeKalb Barons. Angola had a tough loss to Norwell last week in a 12-4 Norwell win. I think Angola is definitely chopping their lips to get their first win of the season. And DeKalb looking to extend it to a winning streak for the Barons. Columbia City at Whitco. This is going to be a tough matchup for the Columbia City Eagles, as Whitco is having an incredible start to the season for the Whitco Wildcats. They only have the one loss this season, and that came against Busco, which, to be fair, Busco has looked excellent so far this season. But Whitco has looked pretty good as well. 3-1 this season. Cassidy Skinner, probably the MVP so far this year for the Whitco Wildcats on offense and even on the mound. Looks quite strong so far there. Addie Gar having a nice season so far for the Cats. Sophie Keener, just a sophomore. She's looked promising for the Cats. Isabel Harmon, another sophomore with 3 stolen bases. And so the Whitco Wildcats are going to be a tough out for Columbia City. 3-1 this season. We expect Whitco to be right there in the thick of things in the Three Rivers Conference this season. On Tuesday, Leo is at Carroll, and this Carroll team is going to be an excellent opponent for the Leo Lions. This is a team that has aspirations of making a deep run in the postseason. And this Carroll team, 1-0 so far. They've only played the one game, but it was against South Bend Riley and needed extra innings against South Bend Riley. A good Riley team, no less. And this Carroll team's got a lot of experience coming back with Lauren Kirkpatrick and Tessa Patterson, just a sophomore. Caitlin Kinsey, just a sophomore. You got Taylor Danley, the junior pitcher, having a nice start to the season as well. Lily Schultz, a junior. Another junior, Izzy Rapson. So this Carroll team is talented, and Leo's going to have their hands full with the Carroll Chargers on Tuesday. On Wednesday, New Haven is at Northside. The Bulldogs seeking their first win of the season against the winless Northside Legends. And then Friday, Munster, an 8-3 Munster team, the Mustangs of Munster in the northwestern part of the state. They're traveling to Columbia City to take on the Eagles. Nice out-of-area opponent for Columbia City as they prepare for the Northeast State in a couple weeks from now. And then Leo will be taking on another Fort Wayne area school in the Northrop Bruins on Friday. Northrop has only played just the one game so far, but Northrop's pitching has looked good so far, and they are going to be a tough opponent for the Leo Lions to get some type of offense against this Northrop team, a team that's kind of been the team to beat in the SAC over the past couple years. And then Saturday, East Noble got another tough matchup at Homestead in their doubleheader, as East Noble is going to play some difficult teams for the next couple of weeks, which includes East Side and Warsaw. And I mentioned Central Noble earlier, Homestead, and then Lakeland. They're going to have a doubleheader with Lakeland before they eventually kick off the conference play with Huntington North. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at the Northeast State for baseball. And so far with the Northeast State for baseball, it's kind of a tough read so far for baseball, just because there hasn't been a lot of games being played so far for the Northeast State, whether it's because of spring break, whether it's because of the weather. But nonetheless, there's a lot of unknown with the NE8, and this is a conference that has been competitive. It came down to the last conference game of the season last year, where Norwell fell to Columbia City, but Belmont beat East Noble to allow the Norwell Knights to claim an outright conference championship. While Norwell graduates their two studs in Lane Lewis and Cade Shelton, Norwell has looked pretty good so far in the one game they played, and that was a win against Eastbrook on Friday, 7-0. And Norwell will be taking on the Marion Giants on Monday. And then following that, they'll travel to Mississauga on Tuesday. Intriguing matchup for the Norwell Knights. And then Thursday, one of our two AEC games of the week for baseball will be the Norwell Knights hosting the Heritage Patriots in a battle between two perennial baseball powers in the area. That will be an intriguing matchup there for the Norwell Knights. And then, let's see. And then Saturday, they're going to be on the road. I believe they'll be taking on Logansport on Saturday in a tournament. And that will pretty much conclude their week for Norwell. And then Monday, the Cal will be at Fremont again. We talked about the Cal earlier, so I don't want to talk too much about it. But the Cal Barons, they're pretty much right there again. A lot of nice players coming back. Some college commits for baseball this year. Brady Vince has been almost unstoppable so far for the Cal Barons, not only with his pitching, but also with his defense. And, Brady Vince has looked quite good so far for the Barons. And we expect them to be right there in the thick of things in the NE8. Leo, 3-0 to start the season. They'll be hosting Northup on Monday. And then afterwards, the Leo Lions will be hosting the Carroll Chargers on Wednesday in the other NEC baseball game of the week. I will be talking with the head baseball coach of the Carroll Chargers, and Dave Ginder, as his Carroll Chargers will be the opponent for the Leo Lions on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Leo will conclude the rest of the week by traveling to Bluffton on Thursday. And they will also have a looks like a tournament on Saturday for Leo as well. Or actually, no, take that back. It's a doubleheader it's a doubleheader against an out-of-state opponent in Garden City, Michigan. So that's an intriguing doubleheader for Leo, playing a out-of-state opponent that we don't know too much about in Garden City. And then we looked at East Noble. The Knights had a nice sweep against Northup over the weekend, just completely annihilating the Northup Bruins, led by Ian Ramey in his tremendous day at the plate against the Northup Bruins. They'll be hosting the Snyder Panthers on Wednesday in Kindleville. And then afterwards, they'll be traveling to Wawasee on Friday. And that's pretty much all she wrote for East Noble for this week. Not a very busy week for East Noble for baseball there. And then you take a look at the rest of this week for North of the NE8. Belmont is hosting Adams Central. Columbia City is going to Carroll for the second time. They'll be playing the Carroll Chargers after playing them at Columbia City earlier this year in a 5-4 defeat to Carroll. They'll also be hosting Busco on Wednesday. Belmont is at Bishop Lures. Huntington North, 3-4 in the season. They've played some tough teams so far, including a team like Rochester and Harrison, West Lafayette. They'll be taking another tough opponent in Peru on Wednesday. And then Thursday, Belmont is at Homestead. Another solid program, the Homestead Spartans. New Haven, 2-4 in the season. They've had the pitching, but their offense has struggled to find the consistency. And the defense has definitely had their fair share of struggles as well. They're going to be facing the South Adams Starfires on Thursday as New Haven looks to snap the losing streak, so to speak. Huntington North will be hosting Warsaw on Thursday. Carroll will be hosting DeKalb, as Carroll's got a busy week of playing Northeast State opponents this week. And then Columbia City on Friday will be hosting Center Grove, another intriguing matchup in state against another powerhouse program in Class 4A in Center Grove. And that's pretty much it for baseball and softball. I do want to mention briefly with boys volleyball. And so far, we have seen the NE8 kind of develop in the boys volleyball scheme of things. So far, Columbia City undefeated in the Northeast states and have a half-game lead on Leo. However, Norwell has looked pretty good in their games so far. Norwell 4-1 on the season, and four of the 5 games coming against NEA competition. And outside that loss to Columbia City, they have swept everybody else. So the Knights have looked pretty good for their first season of IHSA boys volleyball and the first season of Norwell boys volleyball in nearly 50 years. Norwell has looked quite good so far for a first impression. So that's that. DeKalb got their first win on, I believe it would have been on Wednesday when they played the Bishop Wayner Saints in a 4-set win. Congratulations to DeKalb. They were 0-7 prior to that win against Wayner. And I believe they are still entering this week at 1-8. That is correct there. You got the Belmont Braves and the New Haven Bulldogs, and New Haven avoided a pretty close game with the Belmont Braves. Belmont came very close to picking up their first IHSA win in boys volleyball in a 5-set defeat. New Haven coming in 5-6. They lost in the East Allen County Schools Tournament Championship game at the hands of Heritage, who swept the EACS tournament over the weekend. But prior to that, New Haven did pick up some nice wins over Elkhart, Northside, and then the 5-setter against Belmont, despite the fact Cameron Summers ended up with 25 kills for the Belmont Braves. And don't worry, Coach Carroll is still coaching, even on the boys' side. So he's coaching the boys and the girls this year. And I'll tell you, Belmont hasn't got a win yet, but I think they're gonna get there soon. I like this. I like their potential for the Belmont Braves. And then Huntington North also picked up a win last week, which was a 3-1 win against the Belmont Braves on Thursday, a 4-setter, thanks to the play of Henry Tucker. Should be an intriguing race. Even Leo is undefeated on the season as well. Leo Lions 3-0 on the season. Columbia City and Leo will meet on Tuesday for the ANEC volleyball match of the week, as the Columbia City Eagles will return to action following spring break by hosting the Leo Lions. Columbia City with 2 collegiate commits in Gabe Swihart and Aiden Grimble. Grimble is going to Huntington University, while Swihart is going to St. Mary of the Woods. So that's what it looks like there. And also for the Fort Wayne area schools outside the NE8s, Carroll continues their momentum on the season as well, to which the Carroll Chargers picked up a 5-set thriller against the Homestead Spartans to put Carroll at 10-4 on the season, which also includes a sweep of Woodland 2 days after beating Homestead. So Carroll has looked quite good so far this season. Homestead 9-2, couple close losses, really just a few points away from really going undefeated on the season so far. So Homestead looks promising as well. Snyder has looked good as well. Just a 1 loss on the season at 8-1 on the campaign. Snyder swept Northrop last week in one of our volleyball matches of the week. Their only loss came against Fishers in the Columbia City tournament. So some very good volleyball on the scene in the area for boys volleyball. And then we also want to briefly congratulate our track and field teams, particularly in the East Allen County Schools District. Leo girls and the New Haven boys won the first ever EACS championship meets, which they started this year. So congratulations to the New Haven boys and the Leo girls on winning those championship meets as well. So without further ado, let's get into our interviews. We begin with the head softball coach of Busco, Phil Nicolet, followed by the head softball coach of East Noble, Jessica Hall, and then we'll wrap up our interviews with the head baseball coach of the Carroll Chargers, Dave Ginder. And until next time, I say so long. Here is our interviews. I'm here with the head softball coach of the Busco Eagles, Bill Nicolet. Coach, how are things going for you as your team's off to a 5-0 start on the season?
Yeah, everything's going great so far.
All right, Coach. So talk about your background in the coaching softball, and this is a program that's kind of been building up over the course of these past several years and whatnot. But you build this program of nice, young, talented players so far. But talk about your game of softball and the process with this program moving up over the course of these several years.
Well, I started coaching back in 1995. I was an assistant coach at Northrop High School. And then in 2000, I took the head coaching job at Snyder, and I coached through 2012 there. I retired, and after about 2 years of missing it, I moved to Churubusco, and the job was open here. So I've been here since, I believe, 2016. It really started the year of COVID. We had been building up the program, and like many other programs, was set to have a really good year that year. And the season got canceled, and our seniors that had worked so hard, again, just like other sports, the seniors that worked so hard didn't get to play that year. And we immediately went right back into a rebuilding year the following year. But during that COVID summer, most of the rec leagues canceled. But I had a group of parents and some kids that wanted to play anyway, so we went in search of a place to play. We put them together. I believe they were probably fourth or fifth grade at that time, and they've stayed together all the way till now, and it's paid off. And that's kind of how it started. They've been playing together, and then as they get too good for the local stuff, we get them on travel teams, and that's really been a big help too. All 12 of my varsity players play travel ball year round now.
Yeah, and obviously that talent has paid off so far. Last season, your team went 9-14, showed signs of really being a competitive team in the Northeast Corner Conference. You return a lot of those kids back from last season, including Grace Lawson, a really good player all around for Busco, nice power bat, and really all nice all around play for Busco. And then you have Jalen Shively, who's going to be committed to Huntington University and whatnot. Shelby Tidner, who is one of your better hitters on this team for Busco. She's coming off a 5-for-5 performance in the Busco Tournament Championship game against Lakeland. And then you have a freshman on this team that not only can have a big, provide an instant impact on the offense, but also can pitch for the Churubusco Eagles, something that Busco's been working on over the years as well. Your team's also a 5-0 start in the season, wins over Whitco, Wawasee, Bishop Lures, and then you swept Bremen and Lakeland on Saturday to win the Busco tournament. Talk about what has worked so far that allowed your team to click at a rate that we have not seen in a long time for this program.
Well, last year we had one pitcher. She had to pitch in all 28 games. And if you look at her stats, she pitched great every week on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. And, it rained a lot last spring, so we got backed up on the games. And she had her worst games towards the end of the week, which would make sense. Her arm was sore. She was tired. So this year we got some much needed relief. We have 4 freshman pitchers, 2 of them that made varsity. And both of them are pitching really well, which has given Emma Walters, is the senior, has given her a break. And she pitches great when she has a day or 2 rest between games, like most pitchers. So she's getting lots of rest, and when she pitches, she's on her A game, and the other 2 are winning games also. They're totally different. One's a lefty, one has a curveball, one has a screwball, one has a rise ball. All 3 of them are completely different pitchers, so we actually have been splitting them up half game, 4 innings apiece, 3 or 4 innings apiece. And so far, it's worked out really well.
Yeah, and one of those pitchers is Alyssa Martz, who was nominated for Performer of the Week, not this past week, but the week before that, with her strong start to her freshman season and whatnot. And then Shelby Tidner, obviously another one that's been nominated for this week's Performer of the Week for softball. When you look at this team, and this is a team that's been, you talked about the travel program being a huge impact for Busco. You now have some depth with pitching. You already have depth with offense as it already is, and then you're infield. You have a variety of different players that can make plays and get outs and whatnot. Describe what this team is, away from the stats, away from the wins and losses, for those that maybe don't follow Busco softball as much as they should.
Well, they got a taste of it last spring in May when we weren't expected to do anything in the sectional. We came back in 10-run, two teams that had just beaten us in the weeks prior, and made it to the championship game. Being that none of them had ever been in a game like that, we kind of choked a little bit in the sectional championship. But, East Side was so good last year that I'm not sure it really mattered. Just being there really helped our program launch. And so they got hungry during that week. And then afterwards, we sat down and we said, here's what you need to do. And I can tell you, when we lose a game, if and when we lose a game, there won't be one kid crying in the dugout saying, well, if I would have done this or I would have done that. They have worked their butts off since last May, whether it be travel ball, hitting lessons, pitching lessons. We have 24 kids in the program, and we had no fewer than 16 at every one of our IHSA allowed off-season practices. They stay after practice and hit extra. The pitchers pitch extra. People volunteer to stay and catch the pitchers, because we have 5 pitchers and 2 catchers. They have done everything that they could possibly do to be as good as they can at this point. And now that they've had some success, it's just they're working their butts off. That's a lot different than in the past.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you there for a minute, but anyway, so now we look ahead to your schedule. Obviously, you played Bremen and Lakewood over the weekend. Then the first taste of what it takes to play at a level of competing for a championship, even though it's an in-season championship, still a good confidence boost for this program as you start playing conference matchups and start playing some tougher games over the course of the season. You got a pretty busy week coming up this week when you're hosting the Snyder Panthers tomorrow. And this will be Snyder's first game of the season, if I recall. You're going to also be hosting Fairfield on Tuesday for a conference matchup. That's a program with a lot of success over the years with Fairfield. They got a nice pitcher in Faith Berkey, a lot of nice offensive pieces on this Fairfield team. This will be a tall task for your team on paper. And then the ANEC game of the week on Wednesday, you got a matchup against the Manchester Squires. And this is a team that's 2-2 in the season. Nice performances so far for the Squires in their game so far. I believe they've also played Bremen as well. So that's one common opponent Manchester's played so far. And then Thursday, you got Garrett also this week, if I recall. And Garrett just picked up a win against East Snowball over the weekend on Saturday. And then you got the defending champions East Side on Saturday. This is a very busy week for your team. Really, it's really going to set the tone of where you stand in the conference over the course of the season. What are your thoughts about this upcoming slate of games?
Well, every year we play the same rotation. So we get Fairfield first. Normally we're coming back from spring break, and they usually have 4 or 5 games in, and we're on game 1 or 2, kind of like the Snyder hasn't played yet, I don't think, because of the weather. And so they always have we've played very well against them the last 2 years, but you know them. They play the short game really well, so if they're not hitting, they can manufacture runs that way. They play solid defense. The Jones girl is a stud, and they just find a way to win. Even on years where you say they're down a little bit, they still come up with big upsets. They're really good. Manchester, we hit the ball all over the field last year. One of our best hitting performances, and they made every play. Their defense was outstanding. So we've got them. Garrett is much improved this year. They've got a great catcher. They've got a great pitcher. Even Snyder has a great pitcher. Michaela Stone is the real deal. And then the East Side on Saturday, and you can say they're down, but no, I don't buy that. Again, they're going to be well coached. They're going to be able to manufacture runs if they can't make them, get them the regular way by hitting home runs and that. So it's going to be a really tough week, but we rearranged our schedule this year so that we'd get 5 games in before we started playing this week. So we're just going to take one game at a time. We're having a ton of fun, and we don't expect to win every game. That's not our goal this year. Our goal is to get as good as we can by sectionals and then try to make some noise there. So no matter what happens this week, it's a win-win situation for us.
Mm-hmm. This is a kind of an unfamiliar scenario for this program. Rarely do you see a program like this go off to such a start like this, 5-0 on the season. You got this very tall, busy week coming up with these matches with Snyder. Usually a traditional decent program. I know they're not the best in the SAC per se, but they still get some quality athletes there. Fairfield, they're always right there in the thick of things. Manchester, as you mentioned, great defense. They got some nice kids that can put the ball in play. Garrett, I like their pitcher on the mound for Garrett, and they got some nice young kids that are building a good future for the program. And then you mentioned Eastside not being down, and I would probably agree with you there. Like Eastside is still a tall challenge for your team in terms of being able to keep them off the board. It's going to be a challenge for your team because they are still very talented and their pitchers still make some plays and whatnot. How do you keep this momentum going? You say it's not about winning every game, but how do you continue to build off of this start so that come May and then come the sectional time, you are playing at the level you're capable of playing come postseason time?
We're not even talking about it right now. We're taking one game at a time. We scheduled some teams that our kids don't know anything about. They don't know anything about Bremen. They didn't know anything about Eastbrook, even though we didn't play them. And so, and our team, we have 5 seniors, but the rest of the team is pretty young, and they don't know any of these teams. They don't know any of their traditions. We're just not talking about it. We're just gonna go out and play our game. And our offense is hitting over 400 right now, up 100 points from last year. And if we hit the ball, we can afford to make some mistakes, and our pitchers are keeping us in the game. So we want to be competitive every game, and at the end of the game, have a chance to have won it. And that's pretty much our goal at this point.
All right, this is Phil Nicolet of Busco, as his team is off to a 5-0 start, one of the best starts in the history of this program, as Busco looks to continue to build on their season and look to stay in the thick of things for the conference and whatnot. And again, that's a story for another time and whatnot. Final question for me, Coach. Obviously, you have some experience now with this program. You say you've coached it since 2020 with Busco softball. You've seen you've seen this program building over the course of these years and whatnot, building the youth program, building up the travel, the travel team, developing all these young kids for the future of this program. Talk about the community support with Busco softball, and just talk about how it's been a fun year so far for this program. Just talk about just your recollection of your time at Busco and with this program.
Well, when I came in here, I was told I'm not from Busco, so I don't have a kid that plays here, so I was unfamiliar with anything in town. And a lot of people were pretty negative and told me that you'll never be successful there. They just don't support the softball like they do football and volleyball and track, and I have not found that to be the case at all. Matter of fact, in the past year, this town they rally behind every sport, just like Albion and all the other small Garrett and. But we raised a lot of money over the past year. We built 3 new batting cages, turfed and concrete, so that we could come out here and have better hitting practices, because we play in a public park. So it's not as nice as having your own field. We can't control who's on it when we leave and what they do to it and tearing it up or whatever. So it was very important that we got things out here that could give 24 kids an opportunity to have a good practice when they come out. You can't expect a kid to work hard if you come out and there's one batting cage and it's blown over in the wind, and you can't have a good practice. You can't expect them to work hard. But the parents and the community, we had 2 fish fries, and we made between $2,000 and $3,000 on each of them from the community coming out and supporting us. We had a couple people from the community donate $10,000 worth of steel posts for the batting cages. We had concrete purchased for them by the rec league out here. The turf was donated. The community in the town and the athletic director and the principal and everybody has just been wonderful, and they've helped us to create a very positive situation out here that we're in right now.
Yeah, Busco does tend to support their local kids, that's for sure. And I could put some experience on that with Busco. They do a good job with their sports. But Coach, any final thoughts before we let you go and talk about Busco softball?
No, I appreciate you having us, and maybe we'll talk to you in a few weeks, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, Coach. Thank you, and good luck to your Busco Eagles this week. A busy schedule right now for Busco softball. One of the best starts in the history of the program, coming off a Busco Tournament Championship, looking to get off a conference play on a good note. Coach, thank you, and good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you.
I'm here with the head softball coach of the East Snowball Knights, Jessica Hall, as her team is off to a 1-1 start, entering a busy week coming up. We'll talk about that in a matter of moments. Coach, how are things going for you on this beautiful Sunday evening in East Snowball? Off to a respectable start so far.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been nice to see the girls play because we had like 4 weeks of practice even before our first game. So we didn't start playing until after our spring break. So it's been nice to be able to get a few games in here.
Yeah, it's a unique schedule because Snowball has their 2 week spring break, and a lot of the teams that usually start early didn't get a lot of games in because of the weather that took place over these past couple weeks. But we'll talk about East Snowball in a matter of moments in terms of this season. But leading up to this season, this team has won a sectional each of the past 2 years, something that hasn't happened to East Snowball softball since 1991, to which you fell to Leo both times in regionals. And while you do graduate some decent players from that last team, with Kylie Anderson and Bailey Bortner, you bring back a whole bunch of experienced players. A lot of them are still only sophomores or juniors on this team, and a lot of experience for your team now with maybe some expectations going into this season.
Yeah, they're last year at the end of the season they were really disappointed in losing to Leo again. So their whole mindset this year is they want to play past the end of school, which for us is to win a regional. Because at least from what I've seen, like East Noble has never won a regional for softball. So that's their ultimate goal this year. And we do bring back a lot of experience. Like I have 4 upperclassmen total on our team. We have 2 seniors, 2 juniors, and the rest are sophomores.
Yep. And you open the season with a nice win against Prairie Heights, 13-1 against the Panthers. Abby Allwine, who's been one of your top players, and especially your top pitcher on this team the past 2 seasons. She had a great performance with 13 strikeouts, only giving up that one run against Prairie Heights. You bring back a sophomore catcher in Aubrey Helmkamp. She's been hitting the ball extremely well so far, batting .571 if I recall. Bree Bortner playing third base, having a nice sophomore season so far. You're looking at just looking at Paige Grid. She was your pitcher on Saturday when in that loss against Garrett. Shay Ritchie, another solid player as well. You look at this East Snowball team, and much the same of other sports at East Snowball on the girls' side. A lot of nice multi-sport athletes, a lot of experience, and already experience of a little bit of taste of what it takes to play at a winning culture, so to speak. What are some things that stand out about the 2025 East Snowball Knights early in the season?
I just think our whole attitude about the season. I know last year I started 5 freshmen. So moving from like travel ball just to like the high school environment is a whole new experience for them. So this year, just coming in, they have a ton of more confidence, and it's evident in their like play and like their approaches at bat too. They have a lot more confidence in themselves, and just in general as a team, we have a lot more confidence in each other. And I think that really showed, especially on Friday, and still even on Saturday, we had a lot of defensive errors. But still, like hitting wise, last year we could not hit. I think her name's Ashley. I think we could not hit the Garrett pitcher last year. Yes. Yep. And then this year, like I think last year we had a total of maybe 3 or 4 hits against her, and then yesterday we had almost 10. So it was like a whole. Like it was nice to see, even though we lost, we still are making improvements from where we were last year.
Yeah, and those are things you can take away, even a loss to Garrett, a team that started red hot and on Saturday against your team, and Garrett eventually won the game 6-5, but you out-hit Garrett 10-5 in that game, and so that's pretty good for your team, especially you mentioned you struggled against their talented junior pitcher, Ashley Vanderbosch, and then Garrett had a couple young kids making some big plays with Adelaide Golitz heading on a big home run. They had an additional home run as well for Garrett. So obviously a challenging opponent to open your season as Garrett is a much improved program. But again, a lot to build off of, despite the fact you probably are a little disappointed with the 5 errors in that game, but still so early in the season. It's your first weekend, really the first couple of games in, just getting that rust off your belt here. So really you have to like the way your team is playing, even with some of the mistakes as you open this week tomorrow for the ANEC softball game of the week against Central Noble in Albion, Indiana. You know this already, but Central Noble has built a nice softball team over the years, coached by David Pearson, which, by the way, we wish him well in his recovery as he suffered a stroke a couple weeks ago. We wish him well. He seems to be in good spirits. But either way, Central Noble, nice team of their own. Kenny Weiss, their catcher. She's going to go to Kalamazoo next year for collegiate softball. You got a plethora of solid kids with Kira Bolin, Nevaeh Schaup in the outfield. Both kids can make big plays there. Katie Forker can hit a big bat there as well. Avery Dieter, very athletic kid for the Central Noble Cougars. And you got Kenzie Kimmel on the mound, and she is as consistent as can be for the Central Noble Cougars. We expect this to be a challenging game for your team. And what are your thoughts with Central Noble on Monday, knowing it's a county rivalry? It's a Central Noble team that has some energy, some athletic talent, and there are going to be some good players on that field competing for some bragging rights.
Yeah, we're excited. I know, especially a lot of my girls, they play on the same travel team as a few of the Central Noble girls. So they're really looking forward to getting to play each other and see which team comes out on top. I think as long as we can put the ball in play, we'll be in a good position. Because if we can hit, then we can score. And as long, too, as we can clean up our errors on defense, because I know against a good team, if you make a mistake, they're going to capitalize on it.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the defense being an area of work so far, but what are some other areas that you feel like maybe this team either has struggled so far or maybe can elevate their areas of improvements?
I think one of our focuses this year has been base running and being more aggressive. And I think in our first game especially, we really hit the mark. But in our second game, we fell a little short. We were a little too aggressive on some situations. So I think we can do a better job of learning when is the opportune time to go to the next base and when we should wait and get hit around.
Yeah, and situational ball could be very key as you get closer and closer to your conference slate. We'll talk about that in a matter of moments. But looking at the rest of your upcoming games coming up this week, after the Central Noble game, you're going right into Warsaw on Tuesday, a team that's kind of had their ups and downs so far, just playing just 2 games so far. They're going to be coming off their spring break for the Warsaw Tigers. They're an intriguing matchup for your team as you'll be heading to Warsaw. And then Saturday, you got that doubleheader with the Homestead Spartans, and that's a program with some experience coming back as well. And Homestead's a team that came very close of winning a sectional championship last year and the year before that. So Homestead's going to be a competitive team. They got a nice player by the name of Peyton Renier on this Homestead team. So they're going to be a challenging opponent for your program. And then you got Eastside coming up on Friday. And Eastside's been one of the top teams in the area over the last few years, winning a state championship in 2022. And while Eastside may not be quite at the level they were a couple years ago, they're still a very challenging opponent for your team. And then you got the doubleheader against the Lakeland Lakers, a team that kind of like Garrett, they can also hit the ball as well. What are your thoughts about the schedule coming up? On top of the Central Noble game, which everybody's going to be talking about, you got some intriguing teams up ahead with Homestead and Eastside that are going to prepare you for your conference.
Yeah, we are really excited to play them and see where we compare against other teams. At practice and stuff, we know what we can do, but obviously when you go against different pitchers, it's just a challenge to see if your girls are going to adjust to the pitching style or if they're not. Like last year we split with Homestead. We beat them one game. They beat us pretty bad the next game. So it'll be interesting to see how we compare both games because we played them at 2 different times last year. So just seeing especially with pitching and stuff where we're at. And Eastside is another one that we're really excited for. We scrimmage against them. So we got to see them a little bit this year, but we haven't beat them yet. So our girls are really, really looking forward for an opportunity. Last year we lost 1-0 to them on an error in the 7th inning. So we're really looking for our chance at a little bit of revenge.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot of home games coming up for East Noble. So after Monday and Tuesday, you're going to have home games against Eastside and Lakeland to give East Noble fans an opportunity to see what this 2025 team can show. And then just a couple weeks from now, Coach, you're going to have your first conference game of the season against Huntington North, who's been one of the top contenders in Northeast over the last couple of years, although Huntington North has definitely lost some good players from the last couple of years. So obviously it's a different Huntington North team this year, but still the Northeast State's a very difficult conference. This is a conference that your team has struggled a bit in the past few years, and with good reason. Like Leo has probably been the top team in all of Northeast Indiana the last 10 years. Columbia City, you know what to expect with Columbia City. They got some excellent pitching, some really good all-around players for the Columbia City Eagles. And then you got the Belmont Braves, who return a lot as well, and they're hitting the ball exceptionally well so far this season. So we do expect the Northeast State to be very competitive once again this season. As you look ahead to the schedule, and again, only 2 games in for your team, so you still have a lot to show for your program, but there's still potential there. What are your thoughts as you get closer? Where do you stand upon the Northeast State and the excitement of playing some high quality softball in the coming weeks ahead?
Yeah, our girls are really excited, and I think like us as coaches are too. We really want to finish ideally we would like to be first in the conference. We haven't done that, at least since I've been here for sure. I don't know like when the last time East Noble was at the top for softball. And I think we have a team this year that is very capable of being near the top. We just have to come ready to compete every game. Like last year, I know we finished towards the bottom, but at least like in most of our losses, we are at least competitive with teams. So I'm hoping we can be that way again this year, just flip the script and us be the winners.
Yeah, I'm looking up with East Noble softball. The last time I can recall that they won a conference championship in softball, I believe it would have been 2011, if I recall. So it's been about 12 or 13 years since the last time they won a conference championship in softball. Yes, it would have been 2011. So they shared Homestead that year in the NHC. So it's been about 14 years since East Noble's won a conference championship. So well before the NEA existed. But the conference, as you know, it prepares you for the state tournament. You play in Class 3A, so you know this type of competition is going to prepare you. We're not going to talk too much about sectionals or anything like that, but it just gives you a show like this type of competition is going to get you ready for a difficult state tournament ahead. Final question for me, Coach. You've had some years under your belt with the East Noble softball team. You also are an assistant coach on the basketball team that just won a sectional championship this season as well. So you've seen a variety of different things with East Noble. A lot of success so far on the East Noble girls side. We're seeing some success on some programs that have never happened before for East Noble. What is it like being a part of this momentum right now for East Noble athletics?
And it's been really exciting. We've had so much support from fans, teachers, administration. Like the girls love it. The energy at games, like sometimes they come into games and like, wow, there's so many people here. And it's just been really exciting, both like as a coach and just even as a fan going to watch other teams compete.
Yeah, and it's a bright future ahead for East Noble as well, as many of these kids that we've seen at East Noble this year. On the girls' side, they're mainly going to be back again next year with 2, maybe 3 years of experience. So the future is very bright for East Noble athletics as a whole in Kendallville, Indiana. Coach, any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, thank you.
All right, Coach. Thank you for talking about East Noble softball. Good luck this week as you travel to Central Noble on a Monday.
Thank you.
I'm here with the head baseball coach of the Carroll Chargers, Dave Ginder. And Coach, this is a program with a lot of history of success so far, and you hit the ground running so far with some tough competition so far. How are things going for you on this Sunday evening for Carroll Chargers baseball?
The Chargers are a work in progress. We've challenged ourselves early. We've played some good competitions and have done a lot of things well. We've got plenty to work on.
Yeah, and I think that's explained it very perfectly for this Carroll program. Coming off a 20-10 season for the Carroll Chargers, winning yet another sectional championship. You do return a lot back, including Jackson Sparks. He's been playing well so far as a senior. You have some decent pitching so far, and Evan Reinhart sporting a 1.31 ERA so far and doing quite well there. You return a lot, so I think that's a good thing there. But I think in terms of the areas to work on, clearly your defense has seen some struggles so far, and it's costing you some games so far. And talk about that work in progress that you just mentioned moments ago with Carroll baseball.
We felt we had a lot of good pieces coming back, kids with some experience, and we're excited for the year. And but each year, groups in different roles, different positions at times. So sometimes it is a work in progress. Now, you mentioned pitching. Our pitching's done well. Has kept us in games. You mentioned Evan Reinhardt and Aaron Benfeld have done a really nice job for us. We're not a pitching staff that's going to, dominate with the fastball, but we're going to throw strikes and hopefully create bad contact. But that contact means we got to play good defense. So that's been kind of a bad spot for us right now, has given up some runs and that kind of things early on here. So hopefully as the weather improves, we continue to improve that way. But defense has been probably a little bit more of a surprise to me. I thought we'd be better defensively than what we have. So I think the potential's there to improve, but time will tell that.
Yeah, and I think that first game kind of shows you that sense of potential there. You opened the season in Columbia City, the first of two meetings with the Columbia City Eagles, and you struggled right off the bat with Columbia City down 4-1 to the seventh inning. You had to play against a really talented pitcher, Grayson Bradbury, who's going to Butler University next year for baseball. So you had a tall task ahead of you against Columbia City, but you got to be proud of your team's resilience coming back, scoring 3 runs in 7, forcing the extra innings. Reinhardt pitched the ball well in those 3 innings he pitched there, and then Sparks, being Jackson Sparks, coming with timing plays, getting some runs in and whatnot. Talk about that game. Just kind of open the season with a win like this, even though you didn't play nearly to the level that you'd expect for a Carroll baseball team, committing 6 errors in that game, only getting 3 hits in that game, but you still got it done against a Columbia City team that I would probably have to say would be one of the top teams in Northeast Indiana.
I would agree. They're talented. We knew it would be a challenge right at the start. The Bradbury kid is one of the best pitchers in the state. So we knew it was going to be a challenge right out of the gate for us. It's just what we want early in the season to kind of prepare ourselves for tough competition. I thought our hitters did a really good job with competing. I think we struck out maybe 5 times that game with a pitcher like that early in the season. I thought we did a very good job competing against him and hanging in there. And they're a solid team. And, when you mentioned the 6 errors, obviously that created an issue for us, but our kids battled and were able to manage and pull one off late.
Mm-hmm. And actually, your team struck out 6 times in that game against Columbia City. So again, mistakes here and there, but still got to win in a crucial moment to start the season. And then leading up to, following that game, you had the doubleheader against Fishers. Again, kind of we talked about earlier about there's potential with this team, just couldn't quite put it together for 7 innings of baseball. You lost both games of Fishers 8-3 and 16-14. You did beat Dwayner on Thursday on the 10th, 14-0. Then you just went down to Noblesville yesterday morning against the Noblesville Millers, another historically great program in baseball. Show again, just like we talked about repeatedly here, there's moments in those games where Carroll has a chance to put it together and put up a solid performance, just not quite getting it done so far. What are some takeaways from these last few games, particularly with the Noblesville game, that you can say, well, we have to feel good about what we can bring, but what, and then we have to say to yourself, what can we do to take this team to another level as we get to throughout the course of the season?
We were able to pick up the Fishers doubleheader. That's part of our spring trip. We normally go down to Jeffersonville, New Albany, and Floyd Central during our spring break and do a trip there and 3 games. And but at that time they were getting 8 to 12 inches of rain, and it just didn't make any sense to spend that money and travel down there for that kind of rain. So we were able to pick up Fishers at the last minute, met up there in Indianapolis, and played a Fishers team that's very talented as well. In the first game, nothing special stood out as far as they just out-executed us. We got beat in a baseball game. They're a very talented team and coach very well. So that was one. Sometimes you just get beat. I felt like we just got beat that game. And then game 2, the airs bit us a little bit. We got behind. Our kids scrapped, and we took a lead late. And then just couldn't hold on at the end and got beaten a slugfest 16-14 against a very good Tigers team. And then this last weekend went down to Noblesville in a great ball game, 3-2 in the 6th inning. Right there, we had some chances early on in the second, third inning, we had runners in scoring position, bases loaded with, 1 and 0 outs and didn't scrap any across. And that comes back to bite you when those kind of things against good teams, when you don't push runs across then. So, but we competed well. We got down, things got away from us with some free bases there in the 6th where they tacked on some runs. But then even again in the 7th, we had an opportunity where we cut the lead to 7-5, and we had bases loaded and with 1 out, and felt good about our opportunities, who we had coming up, and hit a 1-hopper to the shortstop to turn a double play to end it. But we were in a position where woulda, coulda, shoulda, and scratch them across, that we were in a ball game against a very good team. Early on, we made some mistakes that, obviously we felt that gave them some runs, but that's kind of high school baseball. We've got to overcome those. And so we've been close in playing good competition. And I'd much rather play tough, good competitions like we did on Saturday. I think it's better for us in the long run. It's an enjoyable afternoon to spend the day in the sunshine at the park and just see what our kids are made of.
Yeah, it's always they say you'd rather be striking out early than in the most important time of the year, which would be in the postseason. With your schedule, with Carroll and Homestead in particular, because you're independent, your schedules are quite unique because you're scheduling opponents that you feel are best suited for the team in the long haul because of that, the ultimate goal of competing in the state tournament in Class 4A, which quite a bit about in your time at the Carroll Chargers. Looking ahead to this week, very busy week for your team, and I cannot emphasize enough. If you want a quality of games coming up this week, this week pretty much takes the cake for your team. You got Columbia City again on Tuesday. This time you're home against the Eagles. And then the ANEC game of the week on Wednesday, you're going to be traveling to Leo against the Leo Lions. And just like the other sports at Leo, a lot of great athletes at Leo. They hit the ball pretty well. They have some kids that can make plays. They got some decent pitching at Leo, and they're well coached, as they always are for the Leo Lions. The Calb on Thursday, that's in Huntertown as well. And as you know, Coach, the Calb has another program with a lot of history of success in baseball. They're hitting the ball extremely well so far, and the Calb is going to be competitive with your team. And so when you look at this week, 3 really good Northeast State opponents here. What are your thoughts about each of these 3 teams? As you know, they're going to give you a quality test each game.
You're right. They're maybe each team has some talented players and some ability to can beat you on any given night. But in high school baseball, a lot of times we love to compete, but it's more about your own dugout. Baseball's not a sport where there's a lot of pre-scouting like there may be in a basketball setting or a football setting. It's kind of just show up, and it kind of depends on who's on the mound and who's throwing strikes and making the plays. So they're all well coached. Each team has some talented kids, so we'll have our hands full. But we're more concerned about our kids and making plays and just continue to work hard in that way.
Mm-hmm. You talked about the work in progress with Carroll baseball, and with you being the head coach of Carroll for now your 23rd season for the Carroll Chargers, you've seen plenty of experiences of going through the process of fulfilling a full season. When you talk about the 2025 Carroll Chargers thus far, talk about what are the things about Carroll baseball in terms of the players of this team that stand beyond the stats, things that you can't put on a box score.
I think we got a good group of baseball kids that love the game, that work hard at it. I've got a coaching staff that puts a lot of time into it. Brett Windmiller's been with me for all 23 years. Jason Lance have been with me a long time, and guys like Sheldon Van Pelt and even my JV coaches of Elliott Ford and John Schlichter, they both played for us and now back, and they kind of know how things are. We would like to do things here at Carroll, and then even Carson Krause, who we've added the last few years. But what our kids do, I don't know. They work hard, and they just want to compete and play baseball, and I think they do a pretty good job of that on most nights. And we want to push them to compete at a high level. And each year is a work in progress as far as trying to find the right pieces. It's a journey from March until the end of the season to try to fit where those pieces all fit together the best to make us come the best we can be in come tournament time.
Mm-hmm. This is Dave Ginder, the head baseball coach of the Carroll Chargers, 23rd season as the head coach of this historically great Carroll baseball program that expects to compete in Class 4A with some top quality teams like Snyder and Northrop amongst several teams in that sectional. Coach, I just mentioned 23rd season for you as the head baseball coach. A lot of memories with Carroll baseball, a lot of great players coming through this program, having success in the sport beyond Carroll as a whole. 2 state championships in the process, 2010 and 2011 as well. Do you still reconnect some of those things with some of the former players? Are there anything that you still look back on and say, boy, that was a great time with in this program? Boy, did I enjoy being around this team or this player. Do you still reconnect some of those memories even to this day?
Oh, I think those memories will live with us forever. We bring up those guys a lot, and not just those 2 teams that won and advanced further than other teams, but we talk to our guys in our program a lot about success leaves clues and how those kids approach things and how we want to go about and do things, that those, the details of the game, doing things well, it leaves clues to how things should be done. So we talk about those kids a lot. And even to this day, we'll get messages from those kids and laugh about different situations. But it was a memory of, you'll always remember that dog pile. Watching those kids do is something special. But every team's special in a way, that they just the way they interact, their the stories that they tell, and just the unique way that high school kids deal with things.
I mean, that's the best part about being a coach or a teacher, is just be able to recollect those memories and be able to enjoy the things you learn from past teams and players, and be able to say and cherish those things with teams today and say, this is what we can bring here today. This is what we've done before. These memories will always carry you through the rest of your time there. But Coach, any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk high school baseball. I appreciate what you do to promote it, and it's a great thing to be a part of. And thank you for what you do, and the opportunity to promote it in just a small way is important. So I appreciate that.
Appreciate that, Coach. Good luck to you and the Carroll Chargers. We got a busy week coming up, and starting on Tuesday against Columbia City.
All right. Thanks. Go Chargers.
Thank you for watching the ANEC Sports Podcast. Please like this video and like the page ANEC Sports on YouTube. Let people know that the ANEC Sports is on YouTube. Also like our Facebook page at Around the Northeast Corner, and follow either Around the Northeast Corner and Sam Frick on Twitter/X. We're also on Instagram as well. Just look for ANEC Sports or Around the Northeast Corner, and you will find us there. You can also follow the man himself, Sam Frick, the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, for other additional content. This has been an Around the Northeast Corner presentation.